Hello, welcome back to Disrupt Your Norm. I am Naomi Dunn, your host, and today I'm actually in Rome. Let me get this hair tie off. It's not cute for the aesthetic we have going on here. I'm currently in Rome. I was just in Dubai for a retreat and I wanted to continue my travels, so I'm in Rome now. And today's topic, we're talking all about getting triggered and why it can actually be one of the best things for you. The reason I'm talking about this is because I was walking to, I believe it's called the Trenti Fountain, and it just came to my mind how I was on my walk and certain things were bothering me from my previous trip in Dubai. Some things came up for me and I hadn't worked through them yet. And so I was on my walk and I was upset because I couldn't be as excited as I wanted to be for being in Rome. And I felt ungrateful and I felt almost kind of ashamed. And then I remembered what I teach everybody is that getting triggered is one of the best things that can ever happen for you. And what was happening for me is I was getting triggered by something that came up while I was in Dubai. I went to an emotional release class and it brought up a lot of subconscious traumas, I would say, subconscious traumas that I wasn't aware that I hadn't fully healed from. And so they had still been on my mind, and yeah, and then I was not ecstatic, but I was excited and I was grateful for the fact that I now have this time, this opportunity to work through the trigger. So it's not that triggers are going to feel good ever, they won't. But the opportunity that a trigger allows for you is a beautiful thing. So let's potentially change our concept on triggers first of all. So a trigger, I like to think of a trigger as pretend you have a wound on your body, and this wound does not heal unless you intentionally decide to heal it, unless you intentionally put medicine on it, unless you intentionally take care of it, unless you intentionally go to a doctor who helps you take care of it. Now, this wound on your body is painful, so if someone bumps into you or if someone touches that wound, then it's going to hurt you, and your reaction may be yelling, it may be crying, it may be isolation, it may be deep shame, it may be brain fog, it may be feeling extreme fatigue throughout your day and having lower motivation, it may be setting you off into a depressive episode. And a lot of the times, people tend to just snap. There's those who genuinely get triggered very often, and then those who almost cultivate the feelings of getting triggered intentionally and state that they're triggered very often for the purpose of feeling valuable, essentially. When you hear people often stating, oh my gosh, I'm triggered, I'm triggered, I'm triggered, and you can actually sense they are triggered, but you can also sense there's an underlying reason why they're stating that, it's often because they actually want to get triggered and they want the validation that comes from that trigger, the validation that comes from other people because they don't validate themselves. Now, I'm not judging anybody who does this. We're all doing the best that we know how, and that's the best that those people know how, and we honestly all have been there at one point in our lives. And it's helpful to understand that because it can be almost annoying when people are like this, but understanding that's the best that they know how, and the reason being, the reason that they're doing this is because they're seeking external validation. They're seeking validation from people to tell them, you're enough. I'm sorry you're going through that, and I'm sorry for the pain you're going through, because they can't give it to themselves. But it's a very beautiful and profound thing when you can give that to yourself, and when you no longer seek it from other people, and you can be satisfied with the validation you get from yourself, and if you believe in God, the validation you get from God. And that alone can be a very powerful thing. So there's those, like I said, who state it all the time, who seem like they're always getting triggered. And then there's those who are getting triggered very often. They don't state it, they don't even recognize it. They just blow up. So if you think of emotions, think of a glass filled with water, and there's some people who wake up in their day with extra water in that glass, and the water is like negative emotions. And when you pour just a little bit of extra water into that glass, what happens? It overflows. What does overflowing look like? Overflowing looks like lashing out, yelling for no reason, breaking down, crying, and doing experiencing a negative emotion but to the extreme, and having it come out of you in a moment and in a time that's actually not appropriate and not beneficial for the other person. There's internal triggers where maybe you're triggered and you have to step away, have to go into isolation, experience a depressive episode, have a panic attack, or just have the inner critic in your mind really dialed up, like really turned on. Oftentimes, what this will look like for those who have experienced childhood trauma, an inner critic isn't just feeling guilt, it's oftentimes feeling extreme shame. There's a difference between guilt and shame, feeling extreme shame. And once the inner critic is triggered, so say they got rejected by somebody, or something outside of them happened to make their brain think that they're not valuable, or to amplify the thought that they already have that they're invaluable. So when the inner critic gets triggered, it will produce extreme shame, and that shame will show up in every area of your life at that time of being triggered. So say I'm feeling shameful about something that maybe happened in a relationship. I will not just feel shame in that relationship, I will feel shame when I'm doing my business, when I'm doing my work. I will say it's not good enough. It can't be, it's not perfect. It's not this, it's not. And then I might have shame going for a walk in the street. Oh my gosh, someone looked at me funny. I'm feeling triggered by this. Why is this happening? Why do they look at me like this? Am I dressed funny? Do I look bad? When you look in the mirror, oh my gosh, I look so fat today, etc. Like it will show up in every area of your life when the inner critic is triggered. So, very big difference between feeling that guilt and then feeling inner critic shame. And so you can see it with some people, it's very obvious their triggers showing up outside of them. But for most of us, especially with more complex trauma, maybe trauma you had as a child or neglect, it will show up really intensely internally, and other people may not see it, but it can result in your day or your week just being ruined and feeling exhausted, feeling brain fog, and just going into an episode of just no motivation whatsoever. So if we have this wound and we have this trigger, if we don't intentionally decide to take care of it, then the wound stays there, and no matter how many times you get bumped into, the wound gets poked, or somebody maybe even intentionally touches that wound for it to hurt you, you will react either externally or internally every single time. So when it comes to healing these triggers, sometimes a perspective shift is enough to heal it. Sometimes recognizing, okay, I have the wound and it came from feeling invaluable as a child. For some people, that can be enough to shift. But a lot of the times we need to dive a little deeper. And the only way to have an understanding of the trigger is to actually feel it and to allow it to come up and almost engulf yourself in the pain of the trigger. So it's just like when we say you have to go through the storm to get to the other side. The storm is the pain that you have to feel. It's the medicine, it's the sting. But until you allow that sting, the wound will always be there. And so it's really up to you. Do you want temporary pain to no longer feel the pain? And there are times where you feel it and you still experience it. There's often layers to the wound. Maybe you have to apply the medicine more than once, and maybe you just have a very, very painful one-time few-hour crying session, journaling session, therapy session where the wound actually disappears. It's always linear though. It's always going up. You're always chipping away at the problem. And this is really important to know, because sometimes we get triggered by something and we get triggered and we decide, I'm going to heal on it, I'm going to work on it. But you experience it again. But it's really important to understand that when you experience it again after intentionally deciding to heal from it, you're healing just another level of the wound. You have chipped away, you have gone up, and you have positively impacted yourself from the last time. So I don't want you to ever get discouraged. If you're intentionally working on yourself, you need to give yourself a pat on the back, because honestly, very few people do inner work itself. And it's a really beautiful thing for yourself, but also those around you. Getting triggered easily is going to affect your family, it's going to affect your relationships, it's going to affect your friendships, it's going to affect your general well-being. When your general well-being is really off, it's going to impact other people as well. So let's dive deeper in understanding what it means to feel that sting, to feel that pain. How can we do it and how can we get out of it? So, something that I love to do is for emotional release. There's a couple things, and it's really up to you and what you believe is best for yourself. There's journaling. Journaling is a fantastic thing. Writing down the emotions with zero judgment. Like, actually zero judgment. What's really coming up for you? Oftentimes we get triggered to this state that we were in when we first got triggered. And guess what? That's often when you're a child. And so when you get triggered, those childlike feelings, that childlike demeanor will come up. So if you're actually writing down things and getting embarrassed of the words that you're saying because it sounds so immature, keep on writing, because it's your childlike self that's getting triggered. So she needs to feel it. He needs to feel it in order to overcome it. And you will get out of it and you will come back to your regular adult self afterwards. But it's important to know that it's normal and it's essential to almost be in that childlike state at times if you're getting triggered in that sense. So journaling is fantastic. Writing down with zero emotion, not emotion. You want to feel the emotion with zero judgment over the words that you're writing down and the emotion that you're feeling, but you have to first feel safe enough to feel that emotion and have zero judgment against feeling emotions in general. This is hard for some. This is actually hard for many, especially if you dissociate. This is like a sport. You have to think of it like this. It is like a sport. The more you practice it, the better that you get. There are things that will help with that practice. Like if you go to practice every day, that's going to help you. But if you have an amazing coach, that's going to really help you. When I say coach, I'm talking about your mindset and I'm talking about the thoughts that you're producing. If you think and change your perspective on emotions, that can make you 10 times further than you were yesterday, uh, just alone. So having the perspective that emotions are good, emotions are your friend, emotions are like a guest that are visiting your house. You would never reject a guest coming to your house. You would welcome them with love and know that they're going to leave at some point. This is the same with emotions. So engulf yourself in the emotion. You can even just sit and cry, or you can journal if you can't do that, or you can do tapping. I like to do EFT tapping. Tapping is essentially there are median points on your face, neck, shoulders, and your rib area, and you tap as you speak on the emotion. It helps the emotion actually come up. This is like acupuncture points. And there are videos you can watch on YouTube to guide you through what you're feeling. And even if the exact words aren't the things that you're experiencing, you can replace the words with what you're really feeling. So you don't want to stop there. You don't want to get to a 10 out of 10 in pain of the emotion and not allow it to come back down. You want to get to the higher number. You want to get to the 7, 8, 9, 10 of feeling the emotion, feeling the trigger, and then allow it to come down and start developing an understanding about it. So what this may look like is actually just being still and having no distractions, no phone, no TV, no people around you. It's really important that when you get triggered, you take yourself away from the situation. You can hold it in for a while if you can't be home, you can't be in a private space, but you have to take yourself away, because you will not be rational. You will not be like an adult at times, and you will not be fair and kind to those around you oftentimes because you're in a triggered state. So make sure you're alone and just sit with yourself and have no distractions, and start asking questions, either journaling or even asking yourself out loud or in your head, why am I feeling this way? And is the reason I'm getting triggered the actual reason, or is there something deeper? Is it because I feel invaluable? Is it because this is the same thing a teacher said to me as a child and I never healed from it and it's coming up again? Is it because I got cheated on and so I have this view of myself that I'm not worthy of healthy relationships? So this healthy relationship is actually very triggering for me because I don't feel deserving of it. Is this a situation where it's very unfamiliar and just that alone is triggering because the body and brain, subconscious, does not like things that are familiar, because that's not how the subconscious thinks we can survive. So asking yourself questions, diving into it, and those answers will come easier once you engulf yourself in the pain and release it. And sometimes you don't even have to know. Sometimes you don't even have to figure out the answer, and you don't even have to figure out the why. Every time you get triggered and you bring up the emotion and you allow it to come out, that is chipping away at the problem, at the reason for the trigger. It's almost like a ball inside of your body. It's getting smaller every single time until sometimes you don't even have to understand why, but the ball just goes away because it has been chipped away enough. Understanding why is just helpful if the trigger comes again. It's very helpful to recognize the situation for what it is. It's helpful to recognize that you are not screaming at this person, you're not reacting or overreacting to the situation because of the person themselves, but actually because of you. It's never the other person. It is never, ever, ever the other person, because no one gets to have control over your emotions. Only you do, and only you have that control to allow other people to hurt you in that way. So, we are human and we are going to get hurt by other people. But the more you work on yourself, the less you will react, the less you will get triggered. Get rid of any perfectionistic ideas you have right now, though, of healing. Because it's really important, like I said, to recognize that you are on a linear path if you are working on yourself, but there will be times it's going to come up again. Have empathy, have compassion, and have understanding for the fact that you are human, but don't stop there. Allow yourself to work on it at the same time. And recognize you're doing the best that you know how in this very moment. And never give up. And recognize that inner work is a beautiful choice you can make. And it's a privilege. And it's almost a luxury. And you get to choose it for life, because we're always going to get hurt in life. And the better we react to that hurt, the better our lives will be. It's not just for you, and it's for everyone around you. It's for your future family, it's for your future spouse, it's for your friends, and it's just for, like I said, your general well-being. So yeah, I hope you guys have a better understanding on getting triggered and you can actually think of it in a positive light. Please remember, it's a beautiful thing to get triggered. It's a beautiful thing because it's an opportunity to heal and make your life better and allow it so that you get triggered less later in life. And never forget, you are the only one in control of your emotions, in control of your well-being, and in control of your thoughts. Nobody else is, no matter what anybody ever says to you. It's up to you whether or not you take care of it yourself or you allow yourself to really engulf in what they're saying and make it a part of your identity when you don't have to. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and you can visit my website if you would like to learn more about my services. And if you have any questions about them, feel free to contact me there. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.